Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be starting the webinar in 2 minutes. Just giving everyone a chance to log in. Feel free to type in questions into the comments facility in YouTube. We will be monitoring those questions and answering them at the end of our presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our study options webinar, specifically for you, our GED graduates. And thank you for joining us. In today's times, university and college studies can involve a significant commitment of both time and finances. There are many positive reasons behind the decision to pursue further studies, including, and most important, improving your career prospects. My name is Sean Swartz. I'm the CEO of SK Education Solutions. We are the official office of the GED in South Africa and throughout Africa. So if you do have any questions relating to the GED specifically, or if you need help with anything relating to the GED, we're the place to ask. We can get anything sorted out for you. We are live on YouTube, and we have made the comments facility available for you to post your questions. So please feel free to type your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure our expert panelists answer your questions sufficiently. The GED was established over 75 years ago as a testing body that was built on trust and recognition. Today, the GED has grown to become the #1 most recognized higher secondary certificate, which is like a grade 12 worldwide. The GED program is the only higher secondary certificate available in more than 85 countries and is accepted by nearly all universities in the USA and many across the world. One of the benefits of the GED is its flexibility to test on each individual's schedule. The exam can be taken at any time of year. There's no need to wait months for a specific exam date. You as students can schedule your exams whenever you're ready. If you want it at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, it shouldn't be a problem. As long as the venue is available, you can book that time slot and write your exam. By doing that, stress levels are much lower. You can focus on one exam at a time, pass that exam, then move on to the next. Today, we're really very privileged to have Ruan Fenter. He is joining us from Boston City campus, and he's the administration registrar for Boston City Campus Group. Boston City Campus was founded many years ago in 1991, and currently they have over 100 courses for you to choose from. They are accredited in South Africa, but not only accredited in South Africa, they're also accredited internationally. If you have any GED or Boston City Campus related questions, please feel free to type them in the comments section of YouTube. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure our expert panelists answer your questions. Ruan, thank you for joining us. We're very excited for you to share your knowledge with our audience. Over to you.
Thank you, Sean and Lindsay, for having me this afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure to join you and to share what Boston's got to offer to the GED fraternity. So without further ado, I think let's just have a look at the basic offerings that we have at Boston. As a private higher education institution, I think it's very important to state that Boston is registered with the Department of Higher Education as a private education institution. And the qualifications that you will see here presented today are all registered with SACWA, and they're quality controlled by the Council on Higher Education. So it is not a fly-by-night institution, and that we do have the academic credentials required to offer these courses. And in addition to what you've said, yes, we are accredited also by the British American Council in the United Kingdom, and there are also some American accreditations, etc. But being a part, or South Africa being part of the United Nations, provides recognition with all member states of the United Nations, having to at least recognize the qualifications from South Africa like any other country in the world. And to what extent that qualification is evaluated and adjusted according to the country where you want to compare it with qualification standards is purely an academic exercise for us going forward. In the sense that if you go to New Zealand, for example, they will evaluate the qualification along the lines of what the South African Qualifications Authority standards are, and all qualifications in South Africa are evaluated for international compatibilities. So there will be a very strong overlap in the standards from our qualifications to qualifications, especially in the Western world, for example. So let's just have a look at some of the exciting higher certificates that we offer. And, you know, some of them are very straightforward, and, you know, understanding what the program is all about, just looking at the title, for example. Now, very important is that these 10 higher certificates sitting here in front of you are all on the NQF at NQF level 5, but this is on the higher education sub-framework, because there are also other offerings that we have under the occupational sub-framework, which are also higher certificates, but they don't align to the academic qualifications. They're more practical occupational qualifications. And if your viewers are interested in knowing what those are, they're more than welcome to go to the Boston website and peruse whatever is on offer there. They are also registered, but they're not going through the Council on Higher Education. They're going through the Council on Occupational Qualifications, the QCTO, for accreditation and evaluation before it's registered with SACWA. So let's just have a look at the first one, advertising and integrated communication practice. Now, typically what you will find in this qualification is that it's going to teach you the theory and principles, for example, of communication, things like brand management, consumer buying behavior. It's going to allow you to understand the typical advertising industry and where and how it fits in with public relations and marketing. Although there will be a lot of communication in here, it means it leans towards the advertising and the public relations field, and it will touch in the branding element on the marketing qualification that's below that. So the major difference between the first one and the second one is the focus here is purely more marketing. Having a look at, for example, if I have to give you the specifics, the general concepts of marketing, it also looks at business communication. And then a strong element is brand building and brand establishment, where that is not part of the first higher certificate. If you are interested in something more along the social sciences route, I would recommend that you do the HIV/AIDS counseling and management course. This is not going to qualify you as a full-blown counselor. That is really important to note. But it will at least give you the opportunity to advocate in the workplace, in establishing policies, and communicating those policies, educating people about the risks of HIV and the management of AIDS and HIV patients, of how to transmit the disease and how to actually deal with it in a high-risk work environment, like at a clinic, for example, etc., etc. So the hospitality management practice, and if we go and have a look at number 9, tourist and travel management, we find it a lot of times that students arrive on our doorstep and they actually confuse the two. So just for clarity here, hospitality management is managing the establishment where the tourist will arrive, and the tourism and travel management is the travel agency. They are the people making the arrangements for someone to arrive at an establishment where they will reside, and like at a resort, and make use of the facilities. So hospitality management will look at things like occupational health and safety, food preparation and standards. It will look at facilities management, the booking systems for hotels, etc. And with the one in tourism and travel, and I'm sorry that it's a bit dislocated from the rest here, is actually looking more at the South African tourism industry. We look at how to manage bookings, for example, what South Africa and the Southern African part of the continent actually offers the international tourist. And there's also a strong element of letting the student understand the value of tourism in the broader South African economy, and you know, and how it can help communities grow and the development aspect to that. So then if we go and look at logistics, supply chain management practice, this qualification is about inventory management, understanding demand and supply, how that affects the greater business, understanding the electronic management of processes, etc. So it is a good foundation if you would like to enter the logistics and the supply chain management field. The higher certificate in accounting practice, this one is rather important for GED students in particular, and I'll get to why I'm saying so in just a bit. But this will give you a very good grounding in bookkeeping services, as well as understanding tax submissions and the general laws around accounting. And it will touch on, you know, the forensic part of accounting, understanding how to check things are balanced and 100% correct for auditing purposes, for example. The business management practice, that's a very popular higher certificate because it allows you to understand commerce better, and that is why it is in our commerce faculty. This is where you will get to understand the different parts of an organization, how to manage it so that there's financial gains. It's got a very strong element in entrepreneurship, for example. And you will also find that the general business principle within the workplace extends well out of the school preparation that we have for the national senior certificate student, but also for the international student, because it allows you to understand business really in a very simplistic manner, but it also prepares you very well for diploma and degree studies to follow. The HR management practice is also another qualification that is really, really popular with our students. And what is important here is that it looks at the human resource management principles of employee development, although it says management, but this allows you to understand the recruitment, the retention, the motivation of individuals in the workplace, for example. So you will, for example, also in here, understand the legislative framework around HR much better. And I think that is where the value sits in this particular short course that we have. It's a one-year program. Then the last one, paralegal, I find this very interesting because I've got a very sound understanding of the law, and I've also had a very great interest in law throughout my particular line of studies and, you know, other parts of my personal career. This program introduces you to criminal and civil law. It also lets you understand the procedures around the law in criminal and civil matters. It shows you the different elements of law administration, so law practice administration, so you understand all the documentations, the submissions, where documents go, where they need to be submitted, what needs to be signed and completed. And then it also allows you to understand the rules of mitigation, meaning to try and settle matters, especially civil matters and not criminal matters in this regard, so that it can be resolved out of court. So in litigation, there's a strong focus on that in this particular program. So I hope this little summary of each of the qualifications will give a bit of a broader understanding of what they entail and how they actually may lead into further qualifications that we have. I think it's very explanatory, self-explanatory, having a look at these titles. What we have not seen on the previous page is a high certificate in information technology. We are still in the process of developing something like a high certificate in IT, if I have to call it that. So the only level we introduce students to IT is at NQF level 6. And all of these qualifications are 360 credits plus, and you will find that they are also on the higher education sub-framework, and at NQF level 6, it is going to prepare you well for degree studies at NQF level 7. Financial accounting is not strongly invested in the management of business, but it's a really strong accounting, pure accounting. It is challenging, and a lot of students from the GED will not be able to commence with a financial accounting diploma because there is no grounding or foundation phase within the GED to allow for a registration of a financial accounting diploma, or, for example, for the degree in accounting. So it will be advisable that the student then, and we will also by application inform a GED graduate that they will have to commence with a high certificate in accounting, just so that they understand the basic principles of the accounting world and the demands that it places on them as an individual and what they need to understand to articulate to the higher levels. Business management is also 3 years. It starts with an overlap of the first year high certificate modules, and then it goes into the deeper levels of having to understand the theories and being able to articulate around that, and then to try and get to a point where you can analyze, review, and come up with suggestions for within a management style, for example, for the company, or organizational structures, etc. I think systems development and network systems, the two different parts here. Systems development is more leaning towards programming, app development and things like that in the IT world. Network systems, that's really setting up servers and connecting an office environment, how to link into the IT world external to the company itself. Marketing management, very important here. It's a combination. Please don't misunderstand the word management here. The emphasis here is on management. It's a commerce, it relates to the commerce faculty, but it's got an overlap with marketing, which gives it a very distinct positioning within the qualification framework. And it allows you then to make up your mind, should you go into a marketing degree or if you want to go into a commerce degree. Diploma events management, a very strong element in public relations. Also the integrated communication, as well as a little bit of advertising that's present in that. So if you feel like, or you evaluate yourself as an extrovert and you really want to go into the world of staging of events and running projects like that, it's really a very good component to study within our institution. We find that a lot of students that entered our high certificates, for example, in the hospitality management environment, as well as the travel and tourism, the very next level for them in articulating upwards, if they don't study a degree, is to go into the diploma events management, because they are so closely related. There's no questions on any of this so far, Sean.
There are some questions in general, but I think
We'll deal with them at the end.
But before you do continue, maybe just for clarity's sake, if you could just clarify in general, what is a higher certificate and what is a diploma, and how long they are?
Okay, so just to summarize, a higher certificate is pitched at the National Qualification Framework Level 5. They are 120 credits, which means that it will take you a year. Some of them are more. That is the lower level on the NQF post-schooling in South Africa, which is then followed by a diploma. The 360 credits mean that they are 3-year diplomas on the higher education sub-framework. So, and whatever you've completed under a higher certificate, if there is an overlap in the module that you need to repeat in the diploma, and you'll commonly find that diploma modules in the first year are pitched at an NQF level 5. So the mapping in credits, the NQF level and the content is sufficient to award the student then with credits, meaning they don't have to repeat those modules, which is a saving in itself for them. Okay, so is that clear enough?
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
No problem. So what I just want to stress here, if you plan to study towards a degree and you have applied and that application is returned and say you're not successful, you have the option to study either a higher certificate or a diploma, and we'll recommend one for you. You don't have to make that decision, you just need to decide which one you're interested in doing. But we will indicate to you the NQF level that we want you to commence, or that we feel prepared to let you start. Although a lot of students perceive it as really not favorable to start with a higher certificate because they feel they're better than that. There is, however, something to note and something to consider. It is easier to move from a higher certificate to a degree than what it is to move from a diploma to a degree. And I'll explain that in a moment. So I just want your viewers to just keep in mind what I've just stated. And I just need to explain here. A lot of students are confused between what USAF is and what SACWA is. Because when we get to degree studies, foreign qualifications do not necessarily qualify you with automatic access to a degree in South Africa. It's much up to an institution to allow you to register for their higher certificate and to actually study a diploma with them without great difficulty. But when it comes to you applying to a university or another private higher education institution in South Africa, and in accordance with the legislation that's governing that, the American qualification first needs to be evaluated, and then an exemption certificate needs to be awarded to a GED graduate in order to enroll and graduate with a South African accredited degree. So I've jumped a little bit here. So if I just need to clarify here, there are 3 ways of getting to a degree. The first thing is to apply for that exemption certificate. And I know on the GED website, there's quite a lengthy explanation of the requirements to do so. And a lot of students are of the impression they first need to go to SACWA and have the qualification evaluated at X amount of rand. And I think it's about 2,800 rand at the moment. Then they think they need to go to the University South Africa Matriculation Board and make another submission with the SACWA equivalency certificate to prove what they've got. And then there's all the other peripherals that they then ask for at USAF. Which is going to attract another fee, and that fee I've published a little bit later in the presentation for 2020, and I don't know what it will be for 2023. Alternatively, if you want to pursue studies with an institution and you do not want to follow that very difficult route of applying for an exemption certificate directly, your option is always to go for a higher certificate with an institution. And that will, in combination with your GED, allow you to articulate upwards, meaning that you can study either a diploma or a degree afterwards. But there are also requirements put in place by universities. Typically, if you arrive at any of the universities down here in the Cape Peninsula, and I'm talking about the public universities, they might request from you to do the benchmark test, or they're going to ask you for SATs, etc., etc. The other option is to enroll for a diploma and then by natural articulation once again apply for admission to a degree. But once again here, it's a delayed process. It's 3 years of a diploma, and then only you may be considered for admission to a degree. Option 3, which I think is really a favorable option for a student, is to actually apply for degree admission with Boston. We're not going to require from you to actually go and then apply for an exemption certificate on your own. We'll assist you with that. We will evaluate your GED score when you need to be at a minimum of 18 years in your first year of study. And then we will make a recommendation to the matriculation board on your behalf. And I'll talk about the scores that's in here, and I've got a graphic that I'll show later, but for the meantime, your viewers can just read what it says on how we're going to give you that admission. So there will be no requirement for that SACWA expense. There will be definitely an easier way in, and we make that assisted application to University South Africa Matriculation Board on your behalf. It's just to note the last point, and this is where I said when we spoke about the accounting high certificate, is that it must be remembered that the GED does not have accounting as an element. And there is no assessment around that. So it's definitely very important if you want to go into accounting and you see yourself as a chartered accountant at some point in time, that your only way of accessing this degree will be via the high certificate route. Unfortunately, GED, we cannot allow you to register for a diploma either when you go the accounting route. So the degrees that we do offer is the Bachelor of Commerce in Management Marketing. Yet again, it's a commerce degree. The focus here is on business. There's a bit of overlap into the management and the marketing element in business, which is a very unique, and I have to say that again, it's a very unique position because you're not just limited to management. You are also able to make an elective decision in your final year where you can go and even refine your degree a little bit more in choosing a module, let's say entrepreneurship or industrial psychology, that you want to combine with the other majors in this qualification, which is going to be business management and marketing 3. So postgraduate studies, meaning that you are going into the NQF level 8 qualification after this, which is something like an honors. It will allow you greater options with the tertiary institutions because of your electives that you have in place on your transcript. So you can either pursue the marketing and advertising route maybe, or you might decide that you want to do an honors in business management, which further by articulation will lead maybe into an MBA of some sort at some really fancy institution. Okay, I think we've dealt with the Bachelor of Accounting. I'm not going to go in too much there. I just want to highlight one thing, that there is a relationship with our accounting degree being recognized for admission into honors studies through SAICA, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. You're more than welcome to go and have a look at our Boston website with more information on that. I don't think I want to give you too much information about that for now, because that is going to be quite a bit of a lengthy discussion, and there will be a lot of questions around that. And I'm not always going to be the most capable person to answer those because I'm not the academic head for that department. Okay, then the Commerce in Law, it's a 3-year degree. Obviously, it covers the general elements of law, but it also brings in things like the management and the accounting, etc. Now, the typical question we find here is that, can I do an LLB after this? The answer is yes. How many credits you will get at that tertiary institution where you want to do the LLB is purely dependent on the willingness and the curriculum overlap of another institution you're approaching after Boston and what they want to recognize. But in general, the modules are very well constructed. They are very well evaluated, and we have had a number of students that successfully enrolled with other institutions to complete an LLB, which is going to take another 1.5 years of study. So it's not the shortest route to an LLB, but at least it will give you also an opportunity to understand the legal environment, and you can do a little bit of legal advice, but you cannot act as an attorney when you have completed this qualification. For that, you would have to complete the LLB. The Bachelor of Commerce in Human Resource Management, very similar to what I've explained before on the HR Higher Certificate. Obviously, it's now a bit more complex because it travels over 3 years, this qualification. You need to not just be able to understand concepts, you now need to be able to research things within this qualification. You need to understand how they all relate to one another, different subjects, within an organization, within a business, within an economic environment, within the South African legislative framework, and you need to be able to resolve problems. So on a degree level, the biggest thing of an NQF level 7 is that you can articulate and in an analytic way the theory to practice. The Bachelor of Social Sciences, it's a really unique qualification that's sitting with Boston. It's not a typical BA degree. This is really put together in a very nice manner. If you go and look at articulation opportunities here, you can go into human development studies, organizational development studies, NGOs. And what is interesting here and why people should never write off something like a social sciences degree is that it's been proven now internationally that people that come from a BA environment are very good at analyzing and researching things and coming up with different business solutions to someone that has studied an accounting degree or that comes from a commerce environment. That a little bit of creativity that it allows for in this BA environment. If I have to call it BA, but it's not truly a BA, it's just leaning towards it. Brings a completely different feel to the work environment. So I'm inviting everyone to go and have a look at the social sciences degree because it has a lot of opportunities and different scope. People tend to always think about the very popular qualifications to study, and that is, I need to be a lawyer, I need to go and study to become an accountant, I have to become an advocate, I have to do this. The mainstream stuff that the schools tend to tell you is important. But it's not always the case. There are different changes in the world that we need to be aware of, and there are different demands put in place by the work environment, the world we live in, on the qualifications that we actually bring to the table, or that we hold when we try and find a space in the world of work. So just let's make this easy. Sean, I think you guys have this available somewhere. Not too sure. I think I've shared
yes,
this
we have made it available, but maybe you just want to run through it.
No, I'll run through it. I just think, for those who do not have a pen or have the time or can do a screenshot of what is on the screen, let me just explain. So when you apply to Boston, very important, we are not going to charge you an application fee. The second thing is we do not charge you an administration fee. The third thing is we do not charge you for a credit accumulation and transfer in application. And at this point in time, we do not charge students by application for recognition of prior learning. So first of all, applying to our institution makes financial sense because it's not going to cost you money. We don't charge you to evaluate your position for admission to our institution. So what we do in the application process, when we receive your certified GED transcript and a copy of your GED diploma, we analyze internally in our application office your scores for the 4 exams combined. So if you score 580 at the minimum, up to 604 points, and your language assessment has an outcome of 145, we will accept you without any questions into a higher certificate. If you score 605 to 624 and your language was 150, we will accept you without any questions into a diploma. When you have the score 625 to 800 and you have 155 as a minimum for your language component, we will accept you into a degree except for the accounting, and we will notify you in writing that you are accepted on provision that you complete your application with us for an exemption certificate to be issued against the GED. And our institution made that submission to University South Africa on your behalf. And the only payment due will be the current fee, that is 660 Rand. We write the motivation letter and we apply for your letter to be issued. Just in general, that a lot of students, when they make submissions to us, they want to know how long does it take. A University South Africa application, from the time that you receive our feedback and from when you make a deposit into their account, so you never pay Boston the fee, you make the payment to the matriculation board, and we'll tell you what references to use for that deposit. We make the submission to them from our institution on your behalf. They need to respond within a week and a half to 2 weeks. That's their own limit. That's what they've communicated with us. And the evaluation thereafter, depending on how pushed they are with the number of applications coming in. For example, Jan, June, and March is very busy, so the responses are a bit more delayed. But if you come and apply for our next semester, which starts in July, and you apply now, because we are so sure and we're so certain and we know what the outcome of that application will be, we'll accept your registration before we have the answer, because from them acknowledging the submission, up until that point where we get feedback from them, can take up to 6 to 8 weeks before they actually give the outcome. But we've done that pre-evaluation. Any queries and whatever, we deal with them, and it's not for the Boston student at that point in time, because when you register with us, you're a student, and we continue to manage this process with USAC. So I think that is a big advantage. It's just that don't be impatient and think you can only register when you have the USAF outcome. We know what the outcome will be, and we know what communication we're going to get back. So as soon as you've made that that payment, we make the submission. You are welcome to come and register with us. So I hope that gives a good and clear understanding. I just want to show this. We've had a number of applications come in from GED students versus our internal evaluation. You'll see, for example, a student might get 625 as the overall mark, but their language sits at 149. Now, the question is, do you think that student is going to do a higher certificate? If you have a look at what I've shown you before. If you look at that particular score there, because this is what we do. If you have a look at this, and you have a look at that. So I'm going to leave this with you, Sean. I'm not going to go into grave detail here, but it's just to show students that, you know, that student is evaluated. He applied for a high certificate, but he might actually qualify for a degree. So our outcome, you apply for a high certificate in, let's say, for example, travel and tourism. And we say to you, yes, you're in, but why don't you consider rather a degree in events management or a diploma in events management, for example? You understand? Then certain students question, but why am I not admitted? Because they never understood that previous graphic that I showed with our minimum requirements. Remember, those requirements are set by the institution, and that is the minimum we'll accept. And you know, negotiation is not going to be possible, because we are really accommodating in our policy at this point in time. So the last thing I just want to show you, the current fee is 660 for that exemption certificate. We normally only get the new fee around October to November, and then we'll communicate that fee with you, and it will also be updated in our internal correspondence. So yeah, I think our motto is really very clear, and it's actually very inspiring when we say we're serious about education and we're serious about you. The total experience at Boston, we strive to give the student the most effortless enrollment experience, administrative process in their dealings with Boston, and the way we support you in your studies. It's all online, and we're accessible all the time. Our study material make good sense, and you know, there's a lot of fairness. And you know, we aspire, and we're inspired by the fact that someone trusts us, enroll with us, and we want to see you through to a graduation, because that is the fruit of our efforts, is to see you at a graduation. Maybe the last thing I just need to touch on is the question around foreign students, meaning non-South African students that have completed the GED and the requirement of a visa. Now, if you want to enroll with Boston and you want to come and live in South Africa and attend a support center and make use of the internet there and write your assessments at the support center, etc., you're more than welcome to do that. It's just then required that you apply for the appropriate student visa. And our letter, if you apply with, immediately we'll see you're applying with a non-South African ID. We're going to issue a foreign student acceptance letter that will give you a breakdown of all the requirements for that visa. But we also have a number of students that's studying with Boston from abroad. We've got students from Cambodia, we've got Canada, Dubai, Namibia, Angola, Zimbabwe. That is just a few countries around us, our neighboring countries in SADC, that have elected not to obtain a study permit, and they want to remain in the country of origin. You're more than welcome to do so. Just by email, notify us of that choice. We will then allocate your application to a particular support center. And we have two major ones that we utilize. It's the one in Cape Town. The Boston there manages a certain number of students studying from outside of South Africa. And then we've got the other one sitting in Orange Grove. And we also have one in Durban, where we mainly then refer to as a student being in the international mode and in the full distance, meaning that your books needs to be couriered to you abroad, and all our communication will give you the specifics to that. Your assessments will happen if it's sit down in-person assessments having to be invigilated. We'll communicate around that, but majority of the lower level modules are being evaluated online. And there's an application that we use that invigilate you during your exam. So I think I've done a very general overview and try to explain the essence of arriving at Boston with I want to study, and we congratulating you with thank you for studying with us and graduating.
Rowan, thank you. That was really, I think it was more than an introduction. I think it was quite detailed, and thank you very, very much for that. We have some questions which I'd like to jump straight into. Some of them relate to you, some of them relate to Lindsay. So I am going to just jump straight into them. But just for the people that are online, please, I've got a request. Can you just, so we can see that you're actually listening, just click on the like button of our video so we know that you're around and that you're enjoying this video. So here's some questions. The first one is, and you, Ruan, you have answered it already. So if you can just be very brief in answering it, but let's answer it again. And that is, does a student need to convert their GED with SAQA or with the matriculation board before we can apply to Boston?
Yeah, I just think I just want to recap. If you're going to apply, let's say at University of Stellenbosch, or you're going to apply at UJ, those institutions will have their own requirements, and they will most likely ask you to do a SAQA evaluation if it's for a lower level qualification, and they most likely also will require you to do those SATs or sit for the national benchmark test, depending on what you want to study. And you have to also understand that they have their own enrollment criteria. So with Boston, what I've put on the table is different, where I said that if you score on your GED, and we'll verify with the GED South Africa, where there are questions, the outcomes of a student that, or of the results that were submitted for evaluation. So if you apply to Boston, SAQA is not required, because we know what the outcome is. We've seen many years of evaluations coming from SAQA. It just doesn't make sense to ask the same question again. We can verify your results, so we're going to do that. And you don't have to then go to SAQA, but for degree studies, it's important to know you are required to get that exemption certificate. It is a legal requirement that we cannot bypass.
But if I can just add to that, during the application process, please don't do it yourself. Let Boston do it on your behalf, as Ron said. Yes. They'll instruct you of the process to follow. They'll tell you what to do. They'll tell you what to pay. They'll tell you where to pay it, and they'll deal with everything. You don't have to do it. Let them do it on your behalf to make sure it gets done correctly and speedily.
Yes.
Okay, good. The next question is, will this webinar be made available on YouTube? Yes, it is being recorded. It will be made on YouTube. We will be emailing it out to everybody with a link, so don't worry about that. You can always go back and watch your favorite parts again and again. So now the question is, what is the process? Okay, so once again, what is the process of applying to Boston after completing the GED? Ruan, I'm going to answer it for you. Go to the Boston website, boston.ac.za, and click on the apply button. Make an application, provide them with all the information that they want, and they will communicate with you from there onwards. Am I right in that?
Yes. The application officers will, wherever there is a shortcoming or something that they want to know more, they'll communicate in email, either with the branch, or the application will be sent to a support center. They will be in touch either via email, or they'll make a phone call, but they'll tell you definitely what is required or what is amiss, and they'll collect that additional information as a service.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, here's a quick one for you. Does Boston in general, not necessarily the higher ed side of things, but does Boston in general have study options for visual arts, design, and animation?
Yeah, not really with our institution directly, but we've got a sister institution, and that is Boston Media House. They are not online. Some of their programs are in the blended mode. It means that they are doing lectures, but there are also certain parts that's online. They are walking institutions, so you have to physically sit in a class, participate in practical assessments, obviously, and make use of the facilities on the premises. And they are located in Arcadia. There's one in Sandton and one in Durban. But that's a different kettle of fish. So yeah, they also have their own admissions office, their own registrar, but yeah,
So essentially, Boston in general does have those options.
Yeah.
If you want more information, make contact with one of the Boston media.
Yeah. Also on the website. Follow
on the
link.
website. So go to the boston.ac.za website, click on media, and you will get all that information that you need. What GED score is needed to study a higher certificate? I think you've covered that many times. It is available on this video. That table is very, very useful. It tells you exactly what you need. When we talk about the combined scores, it's obviously taking what are the scores that you got for each of the 4 GED exams, add them up together. If you fall in the band, you can apply for a higher certificate. If you fall in a higher band, you can apply for a diploma. If you fall in the highest band, you can apply for a degree. Obviously, remembering not only that, but you also need to have achieved a minimum score in your RLA exam, your English exam, based on the higher certificate, diploma, or degree levels. But use that table to apply. If you do apply and you qualify for a higher, let's say you apply for a higher certificate, but you qualify for a degree, as Ron said, they will let you know, and you can discuss it with one of the staff members there. What GED score do I need to study business management? Well, that's again very specific. It depends on if you want to study it at a higher certificate level or at a degree level. Again, use that table that Ruan shared on the screen. It was very, very helpful. Using that table, you'll have the answers immediately. Does Boston have study options to become a physiotherapist?
No, we don't have a medical faculty.
Okay, so the answer is no, unfortunately not. Lindsay, one for you. What course can we do if we want to go into nursing?
So the Nursing Council in South Africa accepts a GED. Netcare accepts GED students. I think you just need your certificate of evaluation from SACWA, but you can study the GED and then go and study nursing.
Okay, and they can get more information from the GED. So if you are interested in pursuing that and you want more information, you can email us info@ged.org.za, info@ged.org.za, and we'll provide more information on that option. The next one is, can you study a degree in pharmacy? Well, again, Ruan, you said there's no medical related degrees. So at Boston, no, you can't. You'd have to find an alternative university that will accept you to do pharmacy. Mohammed says, I'm interested in a bachelor in accounting. I'm assuming you're talking about to become an accountant as well, a CA. And so, Ruan, just very quickly, the route, you mentioned you have to do higher certificate first. Is that correct?
Yes, it just makes logical sense because there's very little, actually no accounting, and especially South African accounting covered within the GED. So therefore, yes, we're going to require you to do a foundation program, which in our case, I think the first part of that accounting high certificate will prepare you well for it. And then on completion of that, you can also then apply for credits going to the higher level qualifications. And you don't have to do a high certificate, then a diploma, then a degree. I think there's this perception. A lot of students think, oh, I don't want to study 7 years to get a degree. It's not necessarily the case. Remember, you complete a higher certificate. Your GED is equivalent to a national senior certificate. We know that. And that higher certificate will allow us to move you then into the accounting degree with confidence and not setting you up to fail. By choice, we elect to make you do that higher certificate because we know if you arrive in that bachelor's of accounting and you don't understand debit from credits and how to do balance sheets, etc., you are going to be lost for words, and we're going to set you up for failure. And in our mandate with the Council on Higher Education, that is unethical. So that's why we require you to do that foundation program. But it's setting you up for success. Not, otherwise, if we take you directly into that program, we're setting you up for failure.
Yeah, 100% agree. But here's a general question for Boston, and I think you have covered it already, and that is, can we do these courses online, or do I have to come into a Boston campus?
Listen, it's always better if you have access to an administrative center like a Boston branch, and there are 47 around, and it's ever expanding, and I think there will be a number of them rolling out in the next couple of years or so. And it's just so that there's a face on the other side of the table if you run into a problem. Not that our online students cannot be accommodated, but it's just nice to relate to something. So the answer is no. Boston is registered as a city campus, is registered as an institution of distance learning. So we require from you to have access to the internet, and that you need to be able to have your own computer so that you can study, not coming to a campus from home, whenever it suits you. And we even give you an academic calendar to tell you what to do when, and when the submissions are due. And if you just stick to that academic calendar, studying from home in the middle of Namibia, in Botswana, as long as you have sound internet service at some point during the week or all week or 24/7, you will be finding studies really easy. And the teaching material and the methodology is structured in such a way that I actually enrolled my own children with Boston just for the sake of being able to re-look at a lecture online. Where at the university, in the traditional sense where I studied, if that lecturer covers a textbook in 45 minutes and you've missed something, the chances of you getting an interview to ask questions with that lecturer is very minimal. So in addition, the learning platform that's used gives you access to the educator, and it also allows you to email. And in due course, if you are not satisfied and you still need further assistance, there's always a telephone that you can raise an issue with one of the educators or an administrative staff member. So definitely you can do it all online.
Great, that is excellent news. And so that's why you can also study from anywhere in the world. Can I study business management with a combined score of whatever it may be? I mean, I think we've covered that. Go check in the table. If you're still not sure, email us on info@ged.org.za. We'll answer your questions. Are there, I'm just wondering, we are running out of time. We are going over time already. So just very briefly, Natasha's asking about being able to study the GED as a foreign national. Lindsay, can they just email us on info@ged.org.za? Ask the questions, we'll answer them specifically, because she says she's not getting answers to these questions and she does want to go back to school.
Yes, definitely. She can email us on info@ged.org.za. We will give her the process that she needs to follow. She does need approval before she can write exams and GED tests in South Africa as a foreign student.
Okay, so we will provide all the information on how to apply and what to do. Very briefly, Ruan, is there a degree in film industry, for the film industry with Boston?
Our sister company, Boston Media House, they need to make the inquiries with them.
Okay, brilliant. So through Boston Media House, you should be able to get what you need. Can we do a course for editing? I'm assuming that's also graphic editing, etc. Also Boston Media House. Can we pursue animal studies with a GED, Lindsay?
They would need to contact the institution that offers that course and find out what the admission requirements are.
Can I just say something there in addition, Lindsay? Most universities that offer biological studies or BSc studies have an international student office, like at UCT. If you want to go and study something like biology and specialize in fauna and flora, you contact their office directly. and they'll give you the enrollment criteria. And I've seen their admissions on GED, their policies. So it is possible, but it's also availability, first come, first serve.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ron. That's very good to know. Lindsay, there's been a lot of questions relating to the different entry requirements. How many, the combined score plus the RLA to get into the higher certificate, the diploma, the degree, and all of that. And so there was a request, could we provide that picture that Ruan was giving in his presentation? So I think what we'll do is anybody that did register for the webinar, when we send out the email with the recording, we will also include that information, that table, so that you do have it in writing. And we will also reference where it is available on our website, so that you can always go back and access it from there. And then one last question, then we're going to have to call it a day. Lindsay, can you study at AFDA with a GED?
Sure, I don't want to comment on behalf of AFDA. I would recommend contacting the admissions office.
Okay, good. Ruan, thank you very, very much for all the time and expertise and for always making sure that GED students can study at Boston City campus, both high certificates and diplomas, and nowhere else but Boston City campus can you get into a degree directly and immediately. So it really is an amazing thing that you're making available to Boston, to the GED students from Boston. So thank you for that, and thank you very, very much. And Lindsay, thank you for your time and expertise from a GED perspective for answering all these questions. And to everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending the time. I know we have gone a bit overdue, so we're going to end off now. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.